So, welcome, Fred. Would you like to say a few words about what you do at Vodafone?
Yeah.
Why you were volunteered, or you volunteered for this chat?
Well, yes, I'm heading up the network development in Vodafone UK. So it's touching on how we plan and build our networks and how we optimize it. And it touches everything from the mobile and fixed and fiber parts, as well as all of the infrastructure. So that's basically what I look after. Yeah, why did I say yes to this?
You're wondering now, yes?
yeah, exactly. Reminding it. No, but I think AI is a hot topic, right? And it's certainly something that sits very close to me. I think the more you start to look into it, the more you start to realize how much value it actually can bring to you. And I think, it's almost like you need to choose if you're on the train or off the train. And I think, the train is leaving the station and everybody needs to get on it and stay ahead.
So, apart from the literary reference, obviously, with the Who's Afraid Of, I thought of this title about Who's Afraid Of Autonomous Operations because about 6 years ago, I wrote a big research report on autonomous operations. And I interviewed a large number of people from a lot of different operators around the world, not just in Europe. And the fear was palpable, actually. It really surprised me how many people said they were concerned about losing control. I mean, this is despite the fact that actually it's you lot who are writing the AI and closing the loops. Hello, it's not like it's some weird third-party force that appeared left field. So I just thought we'd start maybe, Fred, by me asking you, what do you think the feeling is now within Vodafone? Are you excited? Are you apprehensive? As an organisation.
Yeah, I think, if I summarize it with a word, would be excitement. We can see a tremendous shift. You refer back to 5-6 years ago.
Prehistory, yeah.
And I think, you're right. People were a little bit scared, didn't really know what is AI, what is this going to cause, what is going to bring, how do we use it. So lots of uncertainty there. I think as we have been on this journey now over the past couple of years, people start to know and learn much more about the technology in itself. And when they start to see the benefits it brings, it actually excites people. And now it's more about, it's not about what is AI, it's about, when can I get my hands on it, how do we use it, where do we apply it. So we see a quite big shift in terms of the mindset and the approach towards AI in general, I would say. Yeah.
And also, Vodafone, are you developing your network automation as a kind of central function that is then kind of fed out into your opcos, or are you building the autonomy in the opcos and it's feeding centrally, or is it a bit of both? Or
I would say it's a bit of both. We pledged in October in 21 that we were going to hire 7,000 software engineers. Well, you all know that we don't do that overnight. That takes time. It takes time to build that capability and skills and so on. So from a development perspective, it's fairly central, I would say. However, we're also building the capabilities in the local opcos because that's where we're closer to the customers, to the challenges, and we can identify the opportunities. And then there are demands that comes towards the central function then.
So is central function more about a standardized approach and using standards, and then they're interpreted in the local markets, or?
It's a mix. I think depending on the size of what you're looking at, the size of the challenge or the problem. Obviously, a lot of it is about standardizing things and push things out to make sure that we all have a standardized way of working and so on across Europe. But also when it comes to smaller initiatives, it's about feeding up. So it's both a top-down and a bottom-up approach, I would say, that is being taken. And we then need to discuss in terms of what do we do in-house versus what do we do use partners for. This is also a mix, I would say. While we're building this capability in-house, we're obviously not there to the full extent yet. So we also need to engage with startup companies and well-established companies. And then we look at the different opportunities and challenges that are out there to say, okay, what do we actually do with this? Do we think we can develop this in-house? Do we have the capacity and capability to manage that? Or do we go with one of the partners that we've looked at here? And there's plenty of companies in this area. Now, it's quite surprising, I would have to say. They're all popping up like mushrooms everywhere, I think, in terms of startup companies. And I meet companies on daily, weekly basis that has new ideas, new ways of approaching this, right? And then you need to navigate in that little jungle a bit and say, okay, this is interesting. Do we think we can do it ourselves, or do we need to engage with these guys? Right?
Okay, and what's the advantage of doing it yourself? You do it exactly in the way you want and you have total control. And the obvious things, I suppose, but...
Yeah, I think those are the obvious things. I mean, we can, it's usually cheaper
okay, that's interesting.
To do it in-house. So we are insourcing quite a bit at the moment. I think you have a completely different view of the whole network. So while you speak to smaller companies, they are very niche and maybe addresses one specific point of your challenge. And I think there's a danger with that because we need to make sure that we simplify the networks. We all talk about rationalization in terms of tools and platforms to enable automation. So if you start to engage with too many individual separate companies that addresses just niche parts of your business, you'll sit there in the end of the day with a new...
We've got just a different kind of silo.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay, so what you're saying is joined up thinking is required.
Yes, yeah.
And from the beginning rather than down the line. Okay. Yeah. So really, until generative AI burst into the kind of mainstream consciousness just about a year ago now, I guess, when we've been talking about AI in the network, mostly we've been meaning machine learning. I mean, is that changing? And I don't mean necessarily you're all leaping on the generative AI bus, but I'm just wondering if there are other sorts of AI you're looking at, or whether you think machine learning is going to predominate for the time being, or...
Yeah, I mean, currently we use mainly narrow AI, which is mainly about automating complex tasks, high-volume, repetitive tasks, as well as providing data insight to help us identify opportunities, but also making sure that we have data-driven decisions. Looking at the AI family in general, I think there's multiple, you talked about generative AI, there you have AGI, and I believe there will be more and more so-called families popping up going forward. But I'm more interested to talk about about where it actually applies in the business and where it drives most value. And I think looking at AI, we have a number of use cases in the areas. But from a Vodafone perspective, what we're looking at is how do we apply this new technology on the customer journey from end to end, from the time someone steps a foot into our retail stores or approaches online and want to buy something. How do we respond? What is their experience with the whole onboarding session? Do they get the right bills? When they have an issue, they pick up the phone and call customer care. Are they getting a quick resolution or not? So customer journey is an important area for us. Then, as we move forward, we also need to look at how we actually plan our networks. If we go back in the previous years and looking at how much operators has paid for various spectrums and so on, and how the networks have been deployed, it's been quite simple in the past. But it gets more and more complex going forward. And we're pressured by cost and profitability, all of us. So we need to make sure that we use this new technology when it comes to planning our networks as well, to ensure that we don't just add value to the customer, but also bring value to the business.
So about making the most of assets and resources and spend?
Yes, correct. And I think, once we have that, we also need to look at how we actually operate our networks. So optimization of networks was simple back in the days. You had 2G, it was voice. Going forward, you have so many different type of devices, different demands requiring resources from the network. And there's no human brain that can manage all of that. So you're talking about self-optimized network is obviously a big area for us, as well as zero-touched operations. So you're talking about predictive maintenance and so on. Because what we can see from the little we have applied is that we reduce the trouble ticket significantly when we...
What does significantly mean? 10%, 90%?
No.
Ish?
Above 50, 60%. I mean, that what we see. And by doing that, we can free up the resources to focus on high-value tasks, more complex things, less customer complaints. The network is more stable. If it's more stable, it performs better. If it performs better, it provides better service to our customers as well.
Okay, so I was talking to someone in Enrique's organisation a couple of weeks ago, interestingly, and one of the things he was talking about was the move to cloud native. So I think with everything. And one of the things he said that I thought was very interesting was that there will be no fudging it from now on. Everything will be cloud native going forward, and that this will help with autonomy, because one of the things he said that stifles innovation is this habit of backward compatibility, which obviously telcos with billions sunk in architectures and infrastructure. So, it seems to me that AI and autonomy is coming to the fore just at the time when actually, as Enrique alluded to as well, a lot of stuff is being shut down. So you're getting rid of a lot of the legacy, like the copper local loop, like 3G, and a lot of people as well with the move to 5G SA, although I know that's been slower than we thought. But a lot of people, so I've had a couple of operators who are going to get rid of 5G non-standalone. So it seems to me that AI and autonomy have just arrived at quite an interesting juncture where we are ready to move on and pull the plug on a lot of legacy stuff. And I'm wondering, is that how Vodafone is seeing it?
Yeah, I think you're touching on a number of interesting challenges. I think, it's not just a technology challenge. I think, technology is there today to take us on this journey. But all organizations also have to go through cultural transformation to enable this. If you look at what we are doing with our network, and we started this journey quite some time back, for us it's all about standardize things, simplify it, optimize it, rationalize it, and modernize it. So what do I mean by that? Well, it's going to be very difficult to automate anything if you don't have standards, right? We can't customize things as much as we did in the past, because that will just hold you back when it comes to automations. Right? So standardize customer offers, standardize the way you design your network. Simplify. We have lengthy processes today. That needs to go through some radical simplification. The more steps you have in a process, the more complicated automation will be. So simplify processes, ways of working, and again, your network architecture, right? We're not in the 80s now, we're in a new area. So that needs to be looked at. Optimizing your assets, making sure that you squeeze out everything you can from it. And that sometimes means rotating and moving things around in the network, not just continue to invest and invest.
Do you think AI is going to be really, it seems to me AI could play a really big role in sweating your assets, actually.
Yeah, I think, we need to be, AI for me is an enabler. It also provides you insights and data insights. It can actually help you a lot with the strategies and decisions going forward and how you simplify your network, right? You touched on the legacy equipment. Yes, lots of things needs to be rationalized out of the networks, legacy platforms, legacy tools, all of these things, because they don't have the capabilities that is required today. And rationalization is not just good for automation and so on, but it's also good from an energy consumption perspective and so on, right? And last is about using that and modernizing the network. So I think back in the days, operators maybe modernize the network maybe once every 6 or to 10 years type of thing. I think we can expect those cycles to accelerate as we move forward.
So to be shorter and constant rather than...
Yeah, if we want to stay ahead, looking at this, I mean, the technology is evolving so fast, it's almost difficult to keep up with it, to be honest, right?
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Then the customer behaviors and demands changes so rapidly as well. If you want to provide value to your customers, you need to go on this journey. You need to take the decision and get on that journey. Yeah.
Okay, so something that I've been quite interested in this morning so far, there's been quite a lot of chat about data and how critical it is. And kind of, I think, way back in, I don't know, 2016, let's say, or thereabouts, when we really started talking about 5G, I think we thought that data would be a dragon that we'd slain by now. We'd have it under control, but I don't think that's true. So it's quite interesting that Vodafone, back in, I think it was about, 2021, you moved, you realized to crunch enough data, it had to go to the cloud, because to build that computing power yourself would have been just, pointless, really.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could talk a little bit about using, say, AWS. No, it's not. It's Google Cloud.
It's Google,
in your
yeah,
cloud, sorry. So it's Google and that crunching with the data and how that feeds into network automation.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, Anne. I mean, the computing power needed today is just tremendous, right? And it's just going to get worse as we move forward, right? So it's not going to get less, but significantly more. We went down the route with Google a couple of years ago now, and we see benefits immediately, right? I mean, cloud isn't just storing data, but it also comes with various processes and things and automations that is kind of built in that has simplified things for us. So I think, we got a head start by taking that decision early. Looking back with hindsight, is there something we should have been doing differently maybe? Should we maybe have invested a bit more in business analytics? Should we have standardized APIs more? Should we have moved it to cloud environment or big data lake sooner? Yes. But I think, looking at where we are today, we took the right decision going down the journey with Google. However, like I said earlier today as well, it's not just about putting data into a big cloud environment, but the data also needs to be accurate. And I think what we're doing now is looking a lot at and using AI to simplify data and be more consistent and help us to identify data inconsistency across tools. Right? So that will help us even more going forward.
Okay, so consistency, and you kind of touched on that earlier when you were saying you didn't want to deploy AI to fix a particular issue and then find out you've got, tens or hundreds of different solutions to different problems in different places, and none of them work together very well. So that consistency presumably is like the law within Vodafone as much as possible.
Yes, it is. I mean, we developed an AI framework, and I think this helps people and guides people on where we apply it and not, I would say. And I believe all companies need to go down that journey to not have too many. So
could you just tell us a bit more about what the framework is, Fred? What's it kind of look like? What's its purpose?
No, it touches on ethics. It touches on responsibilities, transparency, people's rights, the private data and information, secure data, and I think it helps us develop the right things in a responsible way.
Okay, what do you see as the next steps with AI and the progress of autonomous networks?
I think autonomous networks is something that we're looking at. I think it's probably what everybody wants.
Yeah.
Is it possible today? I don't think so. Are we on that journey? Yes. there's so much that needs to happen before we get to that stage. I mean, it's not just about the data quality, moving things to cloud, rationalization of the legacy equipment, modernize the network, and simplify it. So we are on that journey, and I believe all of us are on that journey. Whether we will get to fully autonomous networks in the future is I think, difficult to predict now. Will we see much more automation going forward? Yes. Will AI start to play a much bigger role in terms of how operators plan, build and operate their network, and how they engage with the customers? Yes, for sure.
So we've touched on APIs a couple of times, and I was talking to somebody recently who said that this is what we do in telecoms, and I know, I've been watching it for a few decades now. We get super excited about something, and everybody's in a panic to get on the bus, and everybody's afraid they've been left behind, and actually then we all calm down a little bit and realise this stuff's going to take longer than we thought. And it seems to me a key issue is likely to be integration with autonomy and AI. It doesn't seem to me you just do that and bingo, it's part of your systems and you can do magical things with it.
No, you're right. And this is why we drive things via our central function as well, to make sure that we invest in the right areas, so people don't run off and do things right, left, and center, which actually then stops us. It's kind of holding everybody to back, right? And looking at big bets to say, okay, wait now, where do we want to do? Let's not kick off 200 different initiatives here, right? Let's look at where we're spending a lot of time repeating things, which we can automate. It's about looking at the data to drive those decisions and direct us in the right way, right? So I think the framework and the fact that we managed it centrally will help us to mitigate some of those risks.
Okay, Fred, thanks. Has anybody in the audience got questions for Fred? I'm sure there's lots of things you want to ask him that I failed. Hello, is anybody there with a microphone?
Oh, hello, I'm here. Where am I going? Sorry.
Do you want to start with the gentleman over there? I clocked you.
Hi, Taylor from Cortex. My main question is really, out of people, process, and technology, which one do you think is the most important when it comes to getting to autonomous operations for Vodafone?
People aspects is a key. I think sometimes people underestimate the culture that is needed. In some pockets there can be certain resistance. I think in most of the cases why people are resistant or afraid of it is because they don't see the value it brings to them. What's in it for me? How can I benefit from this, right? Or will I lose my job? What's going on here? So you can't just go out and tell people that, we're going to automate everything, right? It's about taking people on a journey. And for me, that's probably the biggest challenge, to be honest. The technology is there. We know what it can do. Use cases has been identified, but it's making sure the organization go on that transformational journey and take people on that journey. For example, what we can see is that, if we look at people looking into network issues and problems, they used to work maybe 9, 10, 11 hours a day, panic escalations, trouble tickets being raised. Now they're working 7 to 8 hours a day. We've taken away a lot of these repetitive issues and problems that they have, and we've been able to get them to focus on more complex things, right? So we actually offloaded them, and by doing that, creating a better work-life balance. So I think every time you go down this route, you need to be able to articulate to the people that you need on your train, what's in it for them, what's the benefits for them. If you're not able to articulate that and get their buy-in, I don't think you will be able to automate much at all, to be honest.
Okay. Robert down here. I thought there was somebody here. Oh, yes. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Go ahead.
Thank you. Ahmed from Intellius. So, as you were saying, getting into the autonomous network, it's a journey, right? So, in terms of to get to this autonomous operations of the network planning and development, you need, first of all, to be also a little bit of intelligent operation, right? So you need to incorporate some more data inputs to how you, like, you know, do the network planning and how you do the network development and how you operate it. So just if you can shed some lights on that journey, incorporating more data and new data sources, and also sometimes also real-time or near real-time kind of data input to for in this like network operations and network planning. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, you know, some of the challenges we can see is that, you know, you only have one workforce, and you know, and you kind of want them to do the thinking, do the innovation, do the development, and also do the operations, which is never a good combination because everything gets half done. And what we can see is that as we offload work from people and we reskill them, we upskill them, and we retrain them, they focus on, like I said before, the high-value tasks, more complex things. They actually have much more time to drive innovations and new ideas, because before they didn't have time to reflect on things and look at stuff, right? So you kind of need to do that unless you want to double your workforce, and that's not very economical, right? So it's freeing up time to allow people to actually spend time on these critical things. And, you know, and that's, for me, it's a circle, right? It just keeps going and going, right? And they will be then looking at, okay, let's pick data from here. Let's look at that. You know, have we missed something here, right? And that's where people should be used, in my view.
João Tunes, Cellfocus. Do you think there will ever be a business case for autonomous networks or autonomous operations, or will we be stuck at, you know, 70–80% of autonomy because there is no business case towards that?
No business case for autonomous networks, but I also think that while we see opportunities today, right, there's certain opportunities that we're not able to see because the way things are operated today in a scattered environment. For me, it's almost taking a step back and simplify and standardize things and back to basics as much as possible. And when we do that, I think we will be able to identify more opportunities. Looking at operations, I mean, I was in Japan, this is many years ago now, with SoftBank, and back then they were probably 15 years ahead of us in terms of automations in Japan. They had 3 people in their NOC in Tokyo. You know, we had a couple of hundred. We don't have that today, but back then, and this is about 7 years ago. So I think when it comes to the network operations of the network, I think almost everything can be automated to a large extent. A lot of the planning of the network can be automated, a lot of the optimization. We're talking about self-healing network, predictive things, which can be done just to certain extents. So it will never be 100%, but large portions can, yeah. And you know, the business case is obvious. I mean, we have so much people working in these areas. You know, it's very labor intense and so on, right? So.
And finally, Robert.
Get there. The telecom industry and telcos in general are great at talking about all kinds of things they could do. Few of which ultimately happen, but that's great. You've got to have lots of ideas in order to have, you know, a good one. There's a flip side of this, though, which is I'm interested in the things that you have to tell people not to do, okay? We are not going to do that anymore, okay? Everybody can see the business benefits when you sell the upside, but when you've got an operation, a network that is familiar, it may be creaky and quirky and it may have its oddities. You've got processes that function to a degree. You know, it's not like telcos are, you know, visibly failing in that sense. I mean, that's an arguable point. But in the sort of things that we've heard about already this morning, there comes a point, Enrique sort of alluded to it, you have to decide. And part of it is a positive commitment about deciding what you are going to do, but I'm interested in any examples that you can mention of where there was a painful decision to not do something. We are not going to work with that vendor anymore. We are not going to run that technology. We are not going to Neil's point, I think, and I think it's the holy grail, is the is the weaning off of Microsoft. It's the telecom software industry's dirty little secret, is that Microsoft has been holding telecom together for 30 years through Excel, okay? So, sorry, it's a long way around of asking the question.
I wondered what you were going to say next, to be honest, then. But anyway.
Sorry.
So what are we not doing?
Well,
What should we stop doing?
well,
Banned Excel.
the question is really what's been the most painful not doing? The stuff that everybody said, look, this works fine, this is great, but you've had to say, from a network development point of view, we are not going in that direction. I know you think it works, but it doesn't, it's not where we're going. Is there any example of something? It might be behavioral, it might be a financial thing. You know, you've got to sell your ideas to the CFO somewhere along the line. And you've got to say, you know what, we spent this much on that last year, we are not going to spend that much, whatever it is. Is there anything that strikes you as having been particularly problematic, but it's
Can I say one thing that strikes me is making the announcement you're going to employ 7,000 software engineers 2 years ago when everybody else can't fire people fast enough. I thought that was quite interesting. Sorry, I'm going to be quiet now.
I think there's a few obvious things that we're going to stop doing that requires quite a lot of work, not necessarily related to AI as such, but about removing legacy equipment. I mean, we're shutting down 3G. That's not a simple thing to do. It's lots of discussions and alignments that is needed across the business. We know that in UK, you know, it's been announced that 2G needs to be shut down as well. So these things are quite painful to go through as an organization. But it's also what's needed, actually, to be able to evolve, right? Move spectrum out to 4G and 5G, create a better customer experience, getting rid of legacy equipment and hardware that stops this automation journey. But that requires a lot of work. And that's obviously not just a network conversation, but it's also with the business and the consumer, customers, enterprise customers, so on, right? And looking through, you know, and it's a journey that takes years. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest challenges where we said, okay, we're going to stop it, and let's do it. I think in the beginning there was lots of people that maybe thought that, will this really happen? Is it really going to be done? It's happening. So I think that those are some fairly big and bold decisions. And we talked about data today in terms of where data is and so on. When you start to look at where all of the devices are, what type of customers are, what kind of services are they using, you know, what's on IoT, what is using the 2G and 3G, you're not talking about, you know, 5 million customers or 10 million customers any longer. You're talking about millions and millions of devices that you need to assess. I would say that's been a pretty big thing to decide and move on. I know that everybody is now doing it and everybody's going on that journey. But I believe it's an equal big challenge for everybody. But there's not really any options. Right? So big decisions, we're sticking to it, and it's a lot of hard work. We all know that, you know, when you work in big international companies and so on, everybody isn't always pulling in the same direction with the same objectives. So it's taking a lot of conversations, alignments across the business in terms of how we do this, when we do it. And I think those discussions will continue until it's done. Right? So I think that's probably the big ones that I can call out, to be honest with you.
I'm sorry.
One more.
Oh, we're all right. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm John Panikar from BT and EE. So today, like from BT on the network and EE on the network, in Vodafone on the network and Telefonica on their network means like they are in the on-prem premises and they own the network. Now, tomorrow we are going to a cloud operations where we are housing the network in the cloud, right? So, and that is the way everybody is going to. And if the software also is going in that direction, whereby we are taking the software as a service, we really don't, even though we are paying monthly subscription charge, we are not owning it. Somebody is owning it. We are paying the service charges for monthly use from any of the software, things that you take on. So are we seeing a challenge going forward? You know, it's good, like, you know, we have the artificial intelligence is there and we are taking, you know, cloud operations, but there will be a point where even though we are paying the money from a monthly perspective, we just give the rent, but we don't own it. So are we seeing that challenge going forward?
I think as we move forward, we will probably see a lot of different types of business models, to be honest, right? You know, you're talking about software as a service, you know, platform as a service, and so on. I think how will it look in a couple of years? Difficult to predict. I think there's so much going on. There's so much evolving with the technology. I mean, here we are today talking about AI. What will we sit and talk about in 2 years from now? I don't know. But I do think that we will see an environment which needs to be much more dynamic, much more agile, and what kind of business models that generates, I wouldn't be able to speculate in today.
Okay, I think that's a killer question, though. Anybody who has the answer to that will probably make a few bucks. Right, thank you very much to Fred. That was good.
Thank you.